Now I would like to invite our guest, Oliver Corradi from Tomorrow. And this is just a great example of how a small company can really have a big impact and be very inspiring and maybe also provocative for the large players on the market. So a warm welcome to Oliver, and the screen is yours, and we're looking much forward to hear your speech to kick off the event together with us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. I hope you can all hear me. I will share a couple of slides here that showcase a little bit our journey as a startup. If I can just put this in full screen. Here you go. And this is actually speaking a lot to the first theme that you mentioned about the green transition, because our angle is really to talk about the data-driven green transition in order to make sure that we avoid having a world powered by greenwashing specifically. So a couple of words about myself. I'm actually half French, half Danish. I am coming from DTU. I've also been in France studying general engineering. I've been at IBM and Google, and then at a French startup, worked a lot with AI-related topics. And then been working at Tomorrow, which I founded in 2016, which is my answer, at least personally, to try to fix the climate on a very global scale. So if you look at the challenge that we're tackling, which is climate change, temperature is, of course, the prime indicator that something is wrong. And if you look at a very, very long time series, such as this one, that showcases in the last 10 to 11,000 years, the temperature changes. What is really worrying here is the speed at which the temperature changes. So you can see the temperature has evolved over time, but if you look at the last couple of decades, we've actually been taking almost 1 degree in 50 to 70 years, depending on exactly how you measure it. And if you imagine the sensitivity of the Earth ecosystem, of course, changing by just 1 degree is a huge change to both us humans and also to the biosphere. This is, of course, caused by CO2 emissions, as you all know, and this is an even longer time series that shows in the last 40,000 years what the CO2 concentration in the atmosphere is. And you see this spike to the right that is just shooting up, and that is, of course, worrying all of us. One thing to remember about CO2 emissions is that CO2 is a very, very inert molecule, very hard to suck back from the atmosphere. CO2 stays in the atmosphere between hundreds of years to thousands of years, which means that everything that we're putting up there needs to be considered as debt to our children and our grandchildren. Basically, there's no way this thing is going to disappear by itself unless we suck it back or that we don't emit it. So treat it as really as a debt problem. And the real problem here is that we're even accelerating our CO2 emissions. So you can see here, since the beginning of the century, the CO2 emissions that are happening, and you see the impact of the COVID-19, you see the small bump that is happening. We're talking about between -5 and -10% on a yearly basis, knowing that we were previously increasing at 2 to 3% year on year. The target that we're setting ourselves, if you want to have this 2-degree path, is -5% per year. So you see this gap of 5, 6, 7% per year, depending on how you exactly look at it, which shows the size and the magnitude of the challenge that we're having here. Why is that such a big challenge? And it's really because we're addicted to fossil fuels. So if you look at where energy comes from globally, you have 80% of that energy that comes from the fossil fuels. And you see they have an almost unstoppable growth in our system. And you see the renewables at the bottom, and you see hydro and nuclear, low carbon technologies that are gaining traction, but we're still far off. And this is why this is such a big challenge. And if you think a little bit about the power of oil, if you take 1 liter of oil, that's approximately 10 kilowatt hours of energy, it costs almost nothing. €1, something like that, 1 to 2 euros, depending on exactly how you count it. It's ultra portable. It weighs almost nothing. You can take it with you, and then you can fill out a boat and then start riding your boat or a motorcycle or something else. Imagine doing exactly the same thing with an alternative energy source. You need to store it. And if you look, for example, at electricity storage, you can look at a Tesla Powerwall, which is a good comparison. It would weigh maybe 100 times more. It would cost 1,000 times more, and it would store approximately the same energy, even if you could get energy from solar and wind for free in it. So again, that showcases just the amount of challenges we're up against and why we need all those innovative solutions. One last piece on this broader picture is that we actually came from a 100% renewable world. We used to chop down trees and heat ourselves with them. And then we discovered coal, and then we discovered oil, and we're able to build the first heat engines, the first steam engines, and build trains and so on. And you see that we've actually added layers and layers on top of that of energy sources, which have created the living standards that we're currently having. Greta says something that I really think is good. She says that the real danger is when companies and politicians are making it look like real action is happening, when in fact almost nothing is being done apart from clever accounting and creative PR. And it's very harsh, but I believe that there are some spaces where the creative PR and the clever accounting is really dangerous, because if you don't count things well, then you end up doing make-believe action. And one typical example is, for example, electric vehicles. If you charge, you can see in this picture, it's a bit funny, but if you charge your electric vehicle with a diesel generator, basically how much have you actually won, right? So this is why it's important to understand, is the electricity that I'm generating actually clean? And this showcases the importance of actually measuring things very well in order to be able to understand the impact that you're having. And this is for illustrative purposes. And electric vehicles climate impact, depending on the electricity mix that you're using. And you can see that in countries like Poland, for example, where there's a lot of coal-based electricity production, that the footprint of that vehicle would be close to the diesel one, even though it's better. But if you have low carbon electricity in the countries that you have to the right side, then suddenly the footprint is really lowered by a significant amount. So in this challenge, in this jungle of complicated assessments, how do you make sure that you're making the right decisions, either as a person or as a company? And we saw that problem being so complicated and coming up again and again that we created a company that addresses that, which is called Tomorrow. And I'm going to showcase you a little bit of the solutions we came up with here. So our thesis is really that the global economy is in the midst of the most profound transformation in history. 80% of the energy that we're using comes from fossil fuels. And if we want to be 100% renewable, 100% low carbon, we're basically going to reinvent 80% of the way we do things. And this is going to require insights about all the impact of all the solutions we come out with. Hence why it's so important. And unfortunately, you have the brightest minds in the world that are currently getting sucked into, Apple, Google, and Facebook. And we basically thought we need to create a company where all those people are not thinking about optimizing the ad industry, but thinking about climate change. So we have, our mission statement is to get the world to understand and reduce their carbon footprint. And we're doing that through a couple of products that I'm going to showcase you, and hopefully that will spark ideas and innovations in this workshop. The one obvious solution to climate change that is brought up in many places is to say, let's just electrify everything. Electric planes, electric heating, electric cars, electric whatnot. But we always have to think, as I mentioned before, what about electricity? Is it actually clean? How clean is the electricity used to electrify everything? Unfortunately, most of the electricity in the world is still generated mostly by coal generation. If you look at that machine, maybe you can see on the lower right side of the slide here, you have actually a small tractor here. I showcase you the scale of that machine and the amount of coal that we're actually digging every day in order to put into those machines. And this is actually an excavator from Germany in the lignite mine. So we built something called the electricity map in 2016. It's actually free. You can just go on it on electricitymap.org, or you can download the app. And what this does is that it shows in real time where the electricity comes from. The color on the map basically shows you, is it green or is it not? Is it low carbon or is it not? And it takes into account the imports and the exports. It takes into account whether or not the wind is currently blowing, therefore, if the wind turbines are currently generating electricity or not. And this enabled us to create a data set that in turn enables us to advise policymakers and companies into using electricity more optimally. You can see here, this is once it loads, and we'll see how well this works on Zoom, but this is basically an animation. You can find it on YouTube as well, that showcases how the country's carbon footprint of electricity changes over time. And you can see the small wind patterns coming over and flying over Europe, and you can see how the different countries start to become greener or darker depending on if the wind blows or if the sun shines. If you look at Germany, you see it blinking almost every day, and that's basically due to the solar production patterns that are happening every day. So an obvious conclusion when you see this is, if you really want to lower your electricity emissions, the first thing you can do is utilize electricity at a time where its footprint is lower. So at a time where the wind is blowing or the sun is shining. And so this is our first business model that we created at the company, is basically create an API that enables companies to optimize their electricity usage. And the best use case that we have is the partnership that we announced with Google a couple of months ago, where basically their data centers are working harder when the sun shines or when the wind blows. So there's a lot of AI jobs that they're running, training algorithms, BI tasks, and so on, that are flexible in time. And so they will basically delay them a little bit if they see that the sun is going to shine in a couple of hours, or they will move it ahead of time and do those tasks ahead if they see that the wind is not going to blow in the next couple of hours. So this is a typical use case that has huge impact. Another product that we're building is more on the personal side of things, looking at what are my personal emissions. And this is also an app that you can download completely open. It's called North. And what it does is that it calculates the climate impact of your daily choices by connecting with the apps and services you already use. So a couple of screenshots here to give you an idea of it. To the left side, you have an integration panel where you can connect different systems. For example, you can connect your Tesla, or you can connect your Reisekode for the Danes among us. So every time you would check in and check out in a transportation system, it would directly go into the app. And then you have this bubble view in the middle that enables you to see what is the relative footprint of the things I'm doing. You have the bubble of a car that showcases the emissions of a car ride compared to, you see a shopping cart next to that. That would be, for example, my shopping. And you see a small flame at the bottom. That's the energy that you're using. So by integrating to many systems like that, we can then start making comparisons. And I find it personally super exciting to be able to compare things that never have been compared before, which is my daily electricity usage compared to my meal, compared to a trip to France, for example. And so this is super exciting to see, again, what the power of data and data visualization can actually do. And the last product that we're currently building is the same, but for organizations. So we've seen that assessing climate impact for companies is extremely complicated because it's not automated, and you need a lot of domain expertise required. You need to understand what are the emission factors, the greenhouse gas protocol, what are the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3, how do I collect data? Does it actually make sense, this data that I'm collecting? Should I take into account methane emissions and all those things? So again, we're building a tool in the same spirit, in the same that it's automated. So you can, for example, just connect your accounting system. And from the accounting system, we look at the transactions happening, and using AI would then be able to tell you, well, look, 80% of your footprint actually comes from this conference that you organized where you took all those flights, transatlantic flights, for example. And an important piece of it is, if we want to be trustworthy on what we're doing, we need the carbon models to be open source to enable any scientist in the world or anyone who has questions about it to be able to look under the hood, say, okay, how does this work? And maybe as a person or as a scientist, you have a better model or a better idea or domain-specific knowledge, and then you can suggest changes to that. It also means that anyone who wants to build a product that uses carbon models can just piggyback on the work that we've done because it's open. And this is really how we're getting, this large-scale impact on a worldwide level. So how the solution actually works is that first step, you collect some data. You could connect to your bank account. You could connect to your Amazon cloud account in order to understand when the servers that you're using are running. Then we're assessing the impact using the carbon models that I just mentioned. And then comes the piece where you want to take action. And that's either by setting some goals, getting some recommendation, purchasing carbon offsets. It can be many different things. And then at the end, of course, you want to communicate that you have taken climate action, but in a trustworthy matter, exactly like Greta said. So if you want to use this, you can join the waitlist at bloomclimate.com. And I guess this concludes the end of my talk. And I don't know if we have time for any questions, but if there are any, I'd be happy to take a few of those.
Thank you so much, Oliver. A fantastic presentation. So we will have time for questions in the chat. So we'll activate the chat now, so you can have a dialogue directly with Oliver. And yeah, what an amazing way to kickstart this event. So I wrote down a few things. So first of all, reinvent 80% of what we're doing now. That's a big job. So it's good that we're having a lot of teams to onboard this. And then it's like not clicks, but maybe you do one click climate action. So look for Oliver on the chat and go in dialogue. I'll just change the slide here. So let's give a virtual hand to Oliver and join the chat. And then, yeah, just a small comment. If anyone is watching from Facebook, you need to jump to the Zoom link to join the chat. So that's it. So we'll have a few minutes in the chat now and we'll join you shortly. Thank you. So welcome back again. So now we're ready with the next section. So just summarizing, we will have questions for the speakers. From now on, we'll have the 3 tracks, and after each of the tracks, we'll have time for questions. And one other thing, all the slides, now I saw Oliver uploading them in the chat. We will also provide these for you online, so you can get them later. But now, let me see. It's time for the different tracks. So the first track is green transition. And we will have now 8 challenge briefs in total. Each presenter will have 4 minutes to do the pitch. And we will, as a small service, make a little notification when the speaker has 30 seconds left. So Marie will help with that. We'll shift that role. And that's actually it on the practical side. So I'm getting super excited now to hear all the pitches and bring all the partners on stage. So the first person we would like to welcome on the screen together with us is Alfa Laval with Henrik Røssel, Innovation Lead at Alfa Laval Copenhagen. So you will now have 4 minutes to do the presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to do the presentation for Alfa Laval. I will do it like this. What you see here is actually a plant producing fresh water, taking seawater, removing the salt, and then make it usable for various purposes. Water is, you can say, a scarce resource, so it's quite important that we actually have enough and that we treat the water we actually have for the right purpose. Representing an old company, I mean, we have 136 years history behind us. We are very traditional in what we do. We do a lot of stainless steel, and that is actually the topic. But having, you can say, water as the issue, the line we would like you to actually think about when we do this. Our title is called Beyond Steel because this is actually what we're looking for. When we look into what we actually do, then we have, you can say, equipment and spare parts. Service made out of steel is our core products. We have here 2 examples of the first one that could be installed on a vessel. It could be installed also in a, you can say, in a factory. It could be on a platform, delivering the needed fresh water or drinkable water or technical water, depending on, you can say, the degree of cleanness that is actually needed. And it contains a lot of stainless steel, and it's actually quite energy intensive when it's up and running. And that is also something to consider. When we look into the lower part, then, because one thing is to actually create clean water, another thing is when you have used the water, then you have basically not used all of it. So most of the water actually goes back from industries, from our local households and so on, back in to be cleaned to some degree. And it's also stainless steel that we have been producing, and you can say that is what is being used in the market. So this is not just for Alfa Laval. And I would like you to consider how to do this in the future. Because we need to take care about the water. We need to make sure that we actually can deliver both clean but also sustainable water in the future by using equipment that actually can make the difference for us to be able to use the water we have in a good way and also secure that we have enough water for a growing population globally seen. Some of the considerations to look into for this challenge is actually, you can say, the way we do our business today is the classic capital sales and service, meaning that we basically offer something to our customers, and if we have the right price and the right offering, then they would select us as a supplier, and we will deliver according to their specification. But we actually believe that the future is changing. And we believe that, you can say, the period we have had now actually indicates that we need to look at this in a completely different manner or different way compared to what we have actually done in maybe the past 100 years. So how could business models actually look like? And who would own these business models? Does it have to be the suppliers or the manufacturing companies like Alfa Laval? Or could it be somebody else? Every time you make a change, you can say it has an impact on the finance. How could this actually be looked at? How could this be solved? So you actually, you can say, control your finance during this transition. We would like to look into key data, just like looking at the previous presentation from Oliver, saying, what data do you actually need? Because we have a lot of sensors on our equipment, and how can we use this knowledge that we actually have? What kind of data is needed, and how do we transform this data into new value, new assets that can be used? It could be optimizing the way we have actually designed our equipment and so on. How does it look from, you can say, IIoT or just IoT? How do we actually integrate the equipment? What kind of systems do we need? And how do we make sure we can actually monitor all year long? Because that might be a new requirement compared to what we have done so far, based on the business models. We also believe that this requires a new way of thinking in terms of product design. We could also look at, you can say, the value chain. One thing is the current setup we have of our value chain and supply chain. Maybe that needs to be looked at in a completely different way. We could look at risk and benefit. How do we? Yeah, I'll do so. Material and structures, production setup. There might be a second-hand market or for refurbished market, and maybe we should share data. But basically, you can say, how do we make more sustainable clean water as a service, or that could be a solution built on our key technologies and digital capabilities going forward. That is what we would like you to look into. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henrik. That was a super inspiring challenge brief, so a lot to work with there. We will have questions at the end, so we'll just go directly to the next speaker. So the next speaker we would like to invite to go on screen with us is...
So the second track that we have chosen to include in the Virtual Innovation Sprint, we have called it the Future of Works. And what's quite exciting about that is both that I think a lot of us has the personal sensation that it has been a challenge, but also brought new opportunities to work on virtual platforms, which is related to one of the challenges. The two challenge pitches are going to be quite diverse, but we also invite you to take inspiration in both of them. They are really ambitious and they are really on board the Virtual Innovation Sprint and really want to onboard some of the participants to work on this. So I'm quite excited to hear the presentations now. The first one up is the Secretariat of the World Congress of Architects in 2023. They have already set up a secretariat here in Copenhagen, and they are really ambitious in terms of how this Congress is going to take place and the type of solutions that they're needed. So I'm really honored to invite Annette Bleival, which is the CEO of the Secretariat, to let us in on what are some of the relevant challenges that the young participants can work on during the sprint. So over to you, Annette, the screen is yours.
The whole theme of it is, it's about having 10 to 15,000 participants in Copenhagen, about 3,000 exhibitors, and maybe many other people coming just to come to Copenhagen and have a look, wives and children to follow with the delegates. And it's in the beginning of July, hoping that the weather will be fantastic. The Congress is every 3 years. And the idea is to, of course, as congresses are, to exchange knowledge, to discuss, to study, experience, meet new people. And they are normally mostly researchers, practitioners, investors, producers, students, and we hope politicians. Because we think it is very important to tell about how architecture and the building sector can help to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and the overarching principle of leaving no one behind. So we are very focused on that aim of achieving the goals. And in 2023, we have 7 years left before we should all have accomplished the goals in 2030. We have a focus on the young people, and that's why it's especially interesting for us to be part of this challenge. And we have all the way through had a focus on reducing CO2 and make it a more or less climate neutral Congress, which is a challenge in itself. But we would like to do that to save resources, to reduce waste, and also with a view to air tickets and air traffic, and how could we help to reduce that. But then came the further challenge of how can we engage more people, also people who cannot maybe themselves travel, maybe because of they could have a disability or they might not be able to pay to go to Copenhagen, which is also a fairly expensive city. So how do we make a kind of hybrid for everybody to participate? But then came the COVID-19 and pushed us further into this idea about how do we actually make a Congress in the future? How could we make it more virtual? I mean, normally it's very much about gathering, being together, discussing, meeting. And there's also a very big part, which is an exhibition part of the Congress, which is also a very big part of the economy of the Congress. So how can exhibitions, for instance, be more virtually? How can they tell what they would like to do in another way than the usual kind of booths where you stand there and you have some goodies for the people who come by? You have to think another way of contacting clients. And then there are sponsorships also. How is that? So the technical solutions, what will they be in the future for our event and for other big events? And of course, this will have some financial consequences. How would the price structure be for virtual participation and for physical participation? So that's our channels. And we would love to have some fantastic suggestions from you. Thank you very much.
And it's really great to see you active in the chat. The next pitch on a challenge within the Future Works is a collaboration with the European Space Agency and their Business Incubator Center that is based here in Denmark. So a very appropriate challenge when you are a place like Skylab, where we want to think beyond just the globe in terms of the challenges that we're embracing here and how we're taking on sustainability. Unfortunately, we have a few challenges of connecting with Sune now, so we will make sure that Sune gets the opportunity to speak later and to pitch the challenge. So for now, we will continue with the next track. That will also be the final track where we're inviting externals to pitch the concrete challenges that they have developed for the Innovation Sprint. Yeah? So over to you, Christine.
Thank you. Yes, so let's continue with the next track theme. And just to highlighting, if Sune comes back, we'll invite him in today. But for now, we continue in the program and take the next track. I hope you can see the slides, which is new cities. So the first one I would like to invite on the stage is a speaker from Rampel called Thomas Dunweber. So you also have 4 minutes now, and 30 seconds before ending, we'll let you know that the time has been used. So a big warm welcome to you, Thomas, and the screen is yours. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christina. I hope you can hear me. And while you respond to that, I will share my screen, which I've hopefully done. Good. I haven't. Give me a second. Good old technical issues here. There we go. Share. And the bigger version. All right, here we are, right? Stop me if you can't hear me or see anything. So thanks, Christina. And hello, everybody. Hello, friends. Hello, peers. Hello, bright minds. I'm Thomas. I'm representing Ramble. And at Ramble, we are all about creating sustainable societies where people and nature flourish. And we have an awesome challenge brief for you today, which is also a huge and very interesting problem. It's about clean air in new cities. And the reason for that is that when it comes to clean air, it's something that we want, but something we don't have. So here's the problem. According to the World Health Organization, 8 million people die every year from air pollution. That was 8 million people. On top of this, 91% of the world's population lives in places where air quality exceeds recommended limits. In other words, this means that only 9% of us are living in a place where we have a good air quality or recommended air quality levels. Are you breathing clean air right now? At least the problem is huge, right? And it's not just a problem that, as I'm alluding to, which is happening somewhere in a far region, distant, very distant and far away from us here at Denmark, in Denmark and Europe. In fact, air pollution is the biggest environmental health risk in Europe, according to the European Environment Agency. The biggest environmental health risk. But as always, far from enough is being done to solve this problem. In Denmark, a Ramble Better Cities study has shown that air quality is rated lowest when Danes describe the city they live in. At the same time, it's also the factor which most Danes rate as crucial for creating an attractive city to live in. Looking at the facts, this comes from a country which can pride themselves of having close to the best air quality in the world, right? And if that's the case, where does that leave those countries who are not so well off when it comes to air quality? We believe it's fair to say that the world wants clean air, but doesn't have it. So here's our challenge to you. When imagining new cities on a global scale, what does that look like from a clean air perspective? How can we approach this problem from new angles that speed up solving the problem? What incentive structures will prime cities to act now? And how can we commercialize air quality and clean air to create solutions with a sustainable business model, both financially and environmentally? Those are some of the tough questions we'd like your help to tackle. And when doing that, there's just a couple of things we'd like you to consider. However, overall, we'd like your approach not to be narrowed too much, so that you can attack the problem from any angle that you see fit and come up with any ideas that you can, right? But here's just a thing to consider, which comes from all the work that we've done in Ramble with air quality. And that is that please consider who the user is of your suggestion or solution and what their incentives are to act. For example, we are currently not necessarily seeing a great eagerness from cities to share or investigate the state of their air quality. Maybe because a bad result could mean decreases in property value, or that people will leave the city entirely. Another example is that who is willing to pay for solving for the problem, right? So will citizens be willing to pay and accept an increase in taxes, or can this be done without involving citizen funds? So that's our challenge brief to you, and together we're really looking forward to providing clean air to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Thomas. That was a super exciting brief as well. So we actually are lucky to have Sune back.
Ja, Sune Nordentoft Lauritsen, han er faktisk lige nu, he's actually active right now in an acceleration program. So we're extremely lucky that he has the time to onboard us here. And with all the respect of sometimes having complications to join. But we are super excited to welcome you, Sune, on the screen to present us the challenge that you want to bring forward to the participants. The screen is yours, Sune.
Can you hear me? Can you see me and can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Sune.
Okay, great. Thank you. And sorry again for the delay. So my name is Sune, and I'm the manager of the European Space Agency Business Incubation Center in Denmark, ESA Big Denmark in short. So the European Space Agency is basically Europe's NASA. So this is the space agency of the European nations. So at ESA Big Denmark, which is an incubation center, we help Earth benefit from space. And we do this by supporting startups and corporations in utilizing space technology, which can create a positive impact on the world and also help to contribute to a more sustainable society. So our challenge is entitled Space for SDGs, because it's about utilizing space for supporting implementation of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So you might ask, how can space contribute to, for instance, SDG 2, reducing hunger through optimizing crop production in poorer parts of the world? Or how can space contribute to SDG 8, supporting decent work and economic growth by bringing education to refugee kids in remote areas of the world? Or contributing to climate action and management of natural disasters, for instance, managing forest fires? Well, the answer is that space can contribute to all those goals by utilizing satellites in orbit around the Earth as an enabling technology. So what does that mean? Well, it means that applications of satellites of many kinds can be applied to drive really radical change in the capabilities of people on Earth, just like the internet has been an enabling technology. And there are really three main domains of satellite applications that can be enabled as a technology. First of all, satellite-based navigation, positioning. You already know GPS and are familiar with those kinds of satellites. Secondly, satellites that are observing the Earth, providing geo-related information on what is going on in the oceans, on land, and in the atmosphere. And then thirdly, satellite-based communications that can provide global connectivity for IoT, media, and internet, also in more remote parts of the world. So this is the key question of our Space for SDG challenge. How can applications of satellites be exploited to the benefit of a more sustainable society? And so what we would like participants to do is develop solution which, of course, utilizes applications of satellites and which also creates value for end users. But they should also consider, of course, how to make the solution commercially viable, how to commercialize the solution in a startup or in an existing company. And if they want to develop this idea into a commercial solution, we are there to help you in the European Space Agency Incubation Center. So in conclusion, space technologies are not only poised to be enabling technologies for commercial businesses, but they are also poised to have global impact on sustainable development. And this is why the UN has started a program called Space for SDGs, space supporting sustainable development goals. And this program promotes how space can be used in support of the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And please take a look at the site for inspiring examples. So we look very much forward to your ideas. Thank you very much for letting me present today.
Thank you very much, Sune, for a really inspiring presentation. And I hope that some of you would be excited to onboard this, that has a bit more focus on an actual technology, how we're utilizing the full potential of satellites to move to a green transition. We have time for one question, Sune, and I think what could be really interesting maybe was if you could come with an example on what could be a sort of an idea and a solution that the students could go towards in this relatively broad challenge, just to make it a bit more concrete without saying that that's the only way to onboard and tackle this challenge, Sune.
Yeah, so of course.
Already, right? And there's people in the room already working with this, so maybe.
Yeah, so of course, one of the challenges I already, one of the ideas or domains I already mentioned is that there's a challenge in providing sustainable food production across the world, especially in areas that are not so, doesn't have an extended infrastructure. By utilizing satellite data, we can help optimizing, for instance, crop production in poor parts of the world to feed people that really need nutrients of different kinds. So this is the view from space that can provide and enable, enhance the productivity of crop production in parts of the world that really needs sustainable nutrition. This is just one example.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Sune. So that was lucky. We got all the technical issues sorted out. So apologies for that, but let's get the next speaker on. So we continue to the other track with new cities. So an exciting or a very good speaker we have coming up is Katja Gry, Managing Director for Hello Science. And we have in various different projects close collaboration with Hello Science. And they are collaborating with Nilfisk and Novozymes on this challenge. So I would like to give the screen to Katja to present the next challenge brief. 4 minutes to you, and we'll let you know when we have a few seconds left. Or you'll bring a video, I hope. So the screen is yours. Welcome.
Unmute myself. There we go. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Christine, for having us. We're very excited to be here today and very excited to start this great collaboration with all of you out there listening. I'm Katja, and this is Alfred. And we're here today to represent Hello Science. And Hello Science is an incubation platform for SDG startups and companies and people working to solve SDG problems. And whoever goes with a good solution on this challenge can also come there and be incubated if they're interested. But today we brought together Nilfisk and Novozymes. And for those who don't know these two companies, Nilfisk is very big and leading on business-to-business cleaning and cleaning devices. And Novozymes works with enzymes and has made many enzymes for washing powder, but also for different other uses. And the reason we have brought them together on this challenge, which we call Impact the Future of Sustainable Cleaning, is that we believe this COVID-19 pandemic is just the tip of the iceberg. And this raised awareness and focus that has become around getting clean hands and being hygienic and cleaning all the time. It's quite important that it does not affect our climate and also biodiversity. Right now we're using lots of chemicals, we're using lots of disinfectants, but what is this actually doing to our environment? So therefore we would like to join this challenge, hopefully to have you all help us rethink what clean is and what it really means. And also to explore how we can develop new solutions to assure and figure out when do we need to clean. What is clean? Can we make an app device that says this is clean now, so you don't need to run it over with the new cleaning devices just yet and use chemicals on that. But in order to kick this off right, we actually created a little film. So I was wondering if the technician, Uffe, can you put on the little film? The teaser we have for the challenge? Excellent, thank you.
Turn up the volume.
Turn up the volume.
The COVID crisis has shown us how the way we live, we interact, we work with each other day to day is so dependent on a clean and hygienic environment, much more than ever before. And so this world needs new cleaning solutions, and we need to collaborate together to make innovation fast enough.
We want to explore the concept of clean with partners, startups, researchers and students. The challenge is about detecting clean, intelligent cleaning, ecological cleaning, microbial cleaning, and psychology of cleaning.
The pandemic has caused an awareness of the value of clean and hygienic. Everyone is working on that. I think it's super cool to be part of that journey.
We offer invitation to our live lab, long-term digital incubation, mentorship, legal advice, co-working space, lab space for testing, micro grants, and eventually this can lead to research collaborations and joint ventures.
The business opportunities around the corner in the field that will pop out of this has a fantastic future, in my opinion.
Yes. So this can hopefully help inspire, and you can see there are 5 different areas in which, or themes, as you might say, in which we want to focus. And in relation to the support that we're also providing from Nilfisk and Novozymes, we think it's really important that when we are solving these SDG problems, that we work across and we collaborate across. Therefore, we've chosen 2 quite different companies, very complementary companies, to support you throughout this great sprint. And hopefully we can come up with some new great and groundbreaking ideas that can impact the sustainable cleaning future. Will you talk a little bit, Alfred, about what can actually come out of this in the end?
I have 10 seconds, I think. But we're looking for everything from ideas to early stage solutions to more mature startups that can challenge what clean means. And we have access to mentors from both Novozymes and
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for the challenge brief. Both of you, Katja and Alfred, fantastic. You're in the studio with us. We have this big screen over here, so it's just good to see friends in the room with us. So we are having 1 challenge brief left, and then we'll take questions for all the 3 briefs. So the next on stage is Linnea, and I would like to welcome Ditte Lysgaard Vind, and she's a managing partner of Linnea. And you also have 4 minutes to pitch your challenge brief. So I would just like to give the stage to you. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that Ditte is not ready, but it is the last one. So we don't have any more coming up. We'll just take a question for, I saw a question in the chat for Thomas. So Linda, do you have it, or otherwise I have a question. So for Thomas, maybe you could elaborate a little bit on the projects that you've worked with already within clean air from Rambøll. What kind of directions have you gone into, so we get some examples on clean air from your perspective?
Sure, I'm happy to. So there's plenty, right? And the one we'd like to highlight is one called SHARE, which is coming out of our Innovation Accelerator initiative, which is an innovation incubator that we run every year. And that goes very much on hyperlocal air quality monitoring. So just knowing that air quality is poor in Copenhagen right now, for instance, is okay, but knowing that it's down by Sortedamsøen, or like one specific spot that the pollution is coming from, is much more helpful in terms of targeting the problems. That being said, though, we're happy to talk about that, and they're doing great work. But we also like to get different angles on how we can speed up this solving this huge problems where we don't really see a huge, you could say, eagerness to invest a lot of money. The interesting part here is that it's an interesting framing on climate change, right? Because all the air pollution comes from all the bad stuff we're doing to our climate, and air quality then means that there's an urgency because we are dying from it. So hopefully, by focusing on this problem, we can really get a lot of action, behavioral triggers to happen, just as we've seen with COVID, where the urgency of doing something has sparked a lot of activity around the globe. I'll pause there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Thomas. We have another question from the chat. That is the solutions the students should come up with. Can they only address the city governments or also address the national government? So we can't be also interested to implement new methods from this perspective. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this.
Yes, certainly. I think I misunderstood that question first, if it was like out on the countryside or something. but national levels, definitely. I think from as I tried to sort of present in the brief, what we see is difficult is to find the right incentive structures that will trigger actions, right, and people that actually wants to do something about this. So if our bright minds here figure out that that's because we need to address higher up, then that's what we should do.
Great, thank you so much,
Thomas.
Fantastic. So I think we'll wait with the last question. We'll have Ditte present the last challenge brief for today. So I would like to give the stage to you.
Yes. Just 1 second. Thank you very much for having me. I come from Linear Group. I don't know if you have the slides. Otherwise, I'll share my
can't see the slides actually yet.
It's from Morten. Otherwise, I'll just share it.
There we go.
What we essentially do at Linear is we try to design the world of tomorrow with the waste of today, while at the same time working towards a world without waste. So that's also what we want help with in this regard. And if you see on the picture, you see a lot of textile waste. Every year in Denmark, more than 40,000 tons of textiles are being burned. And that's not the most efficient way to utilize the waste. So we're trying to look at, can we take the challenge of from the textile industry with the waste stream, and then combine it with the current challenges in the built environment in terms of the very large negative footprint that we have, and combine that into one solution. And that's essentially what we would love your help with. How can we make sure that we don't burn as many textiles, give them a new life, instead use the qualities that the materials have by utilizing them in the built environment, essentially maybe looking towards the built environment as material banks, while we're looking towards the industry of textile to textile recycling advances. So that's essentially what we want help with. We're very open to how the solutions might be if you are looking towards the first part in sense of how do we design the world of tomorrow with the waste of today, or if you're looking towards how can we essentially make sure that we don't have the waste stream going forward. What we ask you to do is just very much be mindful that we really want the solutions that really solve the problem. And by that we mean we're not so much looking towards some of the solutions in terms of maybe if you have a clean cotton stream or something like that. We really want solutions that tackle the main problem, which is all of these composite materials of essentially plastics. So the large scale solutions, and that you help us by utilizing our model. We call it TIME. It's essentially an MIT innovation model that we just added the environment to, and that you help us by assessing the ideas through our model. And we're happy to share more on why we use it and how we use it and all of these different things. But essentially, we're super open to helping you help us solve the textile problem utilizing the built environment. We have a lot of projects where we can essentially test the solutions once we find them. We already have this solution, which is at the end of the wall. It's actually, we have a lot of textile waste there, which is acoustic panels, because we found that they have a functionality in terms of creating better acoustics. So that's one solution that you could help us elaborate on, but we're hoping that you find many, many more ways that we can utilize the textile waste and use the built environment as a material bank. That was it for me.
30 seconds left. Yeah, but you're finished on time. Fantastic. Thank you, Ditte.
Yes, so let's take a question more before we continue in the program. So I would like to ask you, Ditte, actually, and it goes also across for the other challenge from Hello Science with Novozymes and Nilfisk. So these two challenges are you need integrated, you need multiple players to develop with you. So for the textile industry and for you, Linnea, and you, Ditte, what kind of stakeholders do you see as important to co-develop a solution for your challenge? If you could reflect a little bit on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, because you're absolutely right. With circular economy in general, and with this as well, it's really a matter of cross-sector collaboration and finding partners that you're not used to working with. So definitely some of the partners that we see is, of course, the textile industry on the one end, it's the developers within the built environment, it's the architects, but it's also very much the waste management companies that have the textile waste today. We're looking towards them having way more textile waste because we have to collect it. So essentially the consumer could also be a partner. The material producers and the companies that we have us help develop solutions. What we've been successful at so far is essentially finding production partners that are not used to working with the material, but have production capabilities that match what we want done. So essentially there's a unlimited amount of potential partners, but definitely the combination of taking the textile industry, the built environment, and the waste handlers, I think would be key.
Thank you so much, Ditte. I think that's a very nice note to end off for all the challenge briefs, because we're here with 8 different partners that are going to collaborate also behind the scenes and with the students, because it's a lot of the challenges are cross-sectoral, so we can really support each other on the journey. And that was the last challenge brief we had. So just a big virtual clap. We have it on the screen as well. But thank you so much. And that was all 8 briefs.
It's been really great. And this is absolutely also a learning for us in terms of having so many presentations on short time. So well done to everybody. Again, the detailed challenge descriptions and the slides are going to be available on the website. for you to dig into further. And I know their LinkedIn profiles have also been shared in the chat, so please also feel welcome to connect and network in that regards. This was the presentations. That was very much the essence of the first part of the webinar. We have a few more slides, so hang in there about the next steps. But before we go into the details of those, I know I have highlighted it before, but there is a lot of people that is onboarded this and that has been sprinting the last 5 weeks in terms of developing and preparing both for the weekend, but also today. And a lot of this work is actually carried out by volunteers and organizations that finds this relevant and exciting for them to grow. And I'm very happy now to invite one of the volunteers that has been sitting in one of the other rooms, Annalia, to the couch here.
Come to the couch.
Annalia is part of a organization across Danish universities called the SDG Student Ambassadors. And I just have a brief question to you, Annalia, which is basically about why are you involved in this as a volunteer? What is your basic motivation to onboard this? That I know is a lot of work and will definitely also be a lot of work for the coming weeks to come.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question, first of all. I think the answer to that lies in the DNA of our organization and also our members. Because we are...
I think you need a mic. Is it on already? I'll just hold it here.
Should I start over?
No, just...
Because we in SDG Student Ambassadors strive to engage university students to work with the SDGs, both within but also beyond their academic careers. And then you might ask, well, how do we actually do this? Well, of course, we do it by helping you out with, or Skylab out with events such as this fantastic virtual innovation sprint, but we also do it by asking experts to help us deep dive into how the more technical aspects of applying these global goals are. And then, of course, we also do it because we think it's fun and we like it.
Thank you very much, Annalia. And I think definitely having organizations on board, then we make sure that this is an event that's relevant, both educational, but also for young volunteers, so that we make sure to have that energy. Normally, when we facilitate big events, we would have all of you sitting in front of us or connecting virtually in different ways. So it's really important for us to grasp the nerve and make sure that we make something that's relevant both for the education, but also that goes beyond the education and maybe the startup that you're involved in, but build the learnings together with us. So thank you very much for joining us, and also thank you in advance for all the work that is to come.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Annalia. So we hope that you were further enlightened in terms of what the program is going to be all about, what the challenges that you might be inspired in terms of working with. So we will have a short break now, and Christine will just let you know that it's not stopping now. We're going to have a short break from the couch. It's getting very warm in here, but the chat is actually going to continue.
Yeah, let's just highlight a little bit. I think we have some bullets for you here. Yeah, let me see. Yeah, we encourage you to stretch your legs, get out, get some fresh air, water, some calorie refreshments there. And again, if you're watching from Facebook, remember that you can't join the chat, but go on the Zoom link and you have access to everything. And also, if you join later, the history will not be available, but it will be available for you when you join. Yeah, so that's it. So we'll take a small break now and engage in the chat. Our partners are still there, so direct questions to them. And we're looking forward for the next section in a few minutes.
So hopefully see you in the webinar too, starting at 1:30. Yeah, but take a break and see you very soon.
We can give a small cliffhanger there because we had a question from the audience. What is circular economy? So that's exactly what we'll highlight now. We'll have all the university experts joining on stage to give some small briefs on what circular economy means, what frameworks to use, which tools to use, and best practice examples. So that is really something you can take away. So hang in there. Yes.
And see you very soon.